All right then. So, at the end of last session, you were thrown into the holding cells, locked away after confessing the truth to Skadrith. You are prisoners now. Not yet condemned, but not yet spared. You are fighting the elements. You are fighting hunger. But most importantly, you are fighting time. Because time is the real enemy here. The longer you're stuck in this ice-forged cage, the worse it's going to be for Drogar. Every hour that passes is another hour he rots in Icehold, another hour his usefulness to them runs out. And once that happens, they will discard him. The question is, what do you do now?
So, we're not dead yet. I'm taking that as a win.
That's a very low bar for success. But sure, buddy, whatever helps you sleep on this ice-cold slab of regret.
I want to have a look around this cell, get a vibe from it.
Give me an investigation check.
27 total.
The cell is massive, far too large for you, but not in the way you'd initially thought. At first, you assumed it was built for creatures far bigger than you, maybe giant kind themselves. But as your eyes scan the rough, frost-covered interior, that theory is quickly disproven. To the side, stacked against the jagged ice walls, you spot rugged animal furs, stiff with cold, yet still functional enough to be used as bedding. They vary wildly in size, some twice your height, others barely large enough to wrap around a child. Not meant for giants, then. For humans, dwarves, orcs, others. Nearby, a scattered pile of crude wooden planks lies against the far wall, their edges worn with hasty craftsmanship, their measurements rough, imprecise, as though whoever built them guessed rather than measured. Sleeping arrangements clearly, not meant to comfort, only to endure. There is no fresh blood here, no stench of death. Whoever was held here before you, they were not left to rot. But whether they were freed or taken somewhere worse, that answer remains unclear. Your gaze shifts toward the entrance, where the bars loom thick and frozen, layered with fused ice, bone, and rock, each seam blending seamlessly into the next, as if they were more grown than built. No locks, no hinges, no obvious means of entry or escape. And still, no guards stand outside, because here, none are needed.
So when you said they shut the door on us at the end of last session, what exactly did you mean?
I mean a literal slab of ice. Not a door, not a gate, just solid frozen mass that had been moved aside and then slammed back into place. We're talking 20 feet high, 7 feet wide, and 3 feet thick. A block of pure ice, packed dense, fused into the rock and bone like it was meant to never move again. And for context, that thing weighs at least 11 metric tons. It took 2 frost giants to shift it. So, good luck.
I mean, I could get us out of here. Between sending, scrying, and teleportation circle, I could have us gone in a few minutes.
But you need to know a teleportation circle's location for that to work.
Yeah, that's what I meant. We could call Zabras, ask him to find one, scry on that location, then teleport to him.
And then he could just teleport us back to where we need to be?
Yeah, but if the spell goes wrong, we could still end up 100 miles off course, which defeats the entire point of this mission. Also, it'd make this whole trip a massive waste of time, effort, and energy.
Yeah, it's pointless unless we're absolutely desperate. But still, good to know we've got a plan B.
All right, so what's plan A then? What are we actually thinking here?
I have an idea. What if we bring them back? The ones we killed, Vornhell and Jorvanger. I can cast Raise Dead. If we do that, wouldn't that prove we never wanted them dead? That we're not their enemies? We could return them to their people, make it right. I mean, surely they'd appreciate that.
Sure, I can't imagine why they wouldn't. Give it the whole, hey, sorry about your dead friend and brother. Here they are, good as new. But there's a problem. We still need to get them to believe us.
We aren't going to be the ones sent to find them. They're not going to let us out so we can go on a fetch quest for corpses. If anything, they'll have their own warriors bring the bodies here. Probably what Horath's doing right now anyway, so it's not like they need to trust us. They just need to bring them here and let us prove ourselves.
So we need to get their attention then. Make sure they actually hear us so we can propose this.
Seems that way.
All right then, if we need attention, I can start smashing my sword on that big-ass slab of ice till someone comes looking. Should make enough noise.
Sure, go for it, man. At this point, might as well.
I slam my sword into the slab, Joe. Hard, repeatedly.
Give me a strength check.
Not the best. That's a 14.
That's not going to do shit, is it?
Ugh, I should have given you guidance.
Why isn't our cleric clericking?
The sword smashes against the ice over and over. The ice doesn't splinter, doesn't crack. It absorbs the impact, dulling the sound almost as soon as it's made. Hitting steel or wood would create resonance, something to carry the force of the strike. But ice deadens. Ice buries. No footsteps. No distant booming voices. On the plus side, your guidance wouldn't have helped much anyway, Celestia. It's just how ice is.
Okay, new plan, because that was useless.
All right, since bashing ice like a bunch of cavemen didn't work, why don't we just start shouting, like all of us? Just make so much damn noise that someone has to come deal with us.
All right, let's do this. No half measures. If we're doing this, we go full volume.
I'm all in on this plan. Also, Joe, I'm gonna be thunderclapping on loop, just reverberating that beautiful eardrum-shattering energy through the cell. Oh, and I'll be adding my triangle.
Nice. If we're going all out, I'll start howling like a dying beast. Let's really sell it. Make them think we've all gone feral in here.
I refuse to take part in this.
You're going to end up doing it anyway.
True.
All right, give me a performance check, one of you with advantage, since apparently this is happening.
Hell yeah, that's a 22, Joe.
The oppressive silence of the cavern is obliterated in an instant as you all commit wholeheartedly to making the most obnoxious, ear-splitting, ungodly noise possible. Mite sets the foundation, slamming his hands together in an unrelenting cascade of thunderclaps, sending booming shockwaves through the cell. Each crack of energy rattles the ice, shaking loose bits of frost from the ceiling, punctuated, because why not, by the delicate, almost mockingly pathetic chime of his triangle, tapping along with the force of a dying bard performing one last tragic song. Meanwhile, all hell breaks loose. Tronald, Saxi, Celestia, and Raarh go absolutely feral, each committing to pure, unhinged vocal destruction in their own way. Tronald and Saxi seem to be competing, their voices bouncing between war cries, operatic howls, and straight-up incoherent nonsense, as if volume alone will make them too important to ignore. Raarh, meanwhile, leans into the madness, unleashing deep, guttural howls, a sound somewhere between a dying elk, an enraged wolf, and an orc who's just realized someone overcooked his steak. Celestia, either out of desperation or sheer chaotic resignation, starts harmonizing with Raarh's howls, turning it into some kind of apocalyptic funeral chant that makes the entire scene sound way more dramatic than it actually is. And Alden, who explicitly said he would not partake, finds himself unintentionally swept up in the insanity as he starts throat singing like Matthew McConaughey from The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, this is beautiful. This is art.
Yep, this is what true power sounds like.
Louder! Let them feel it! Let the frost tremble!
Oh God, even Joe's getting involved.
Couldn't help myself. Anyway, just as you're reaching peak insanity, you hear it, a voice. But not from outside the ice slab. To your left, behind a solid wall of ice. The sound is muffled, but clear enough. A deep, exhausted, and thoroughly unimpressed voice cuts through the chaos, dripping with absolute disdain.
Shut the fuck up and let us rest.
Congratulations. You have discovered other prisoners. And they already hate you.
Honestly, I couldn't care less if they hate us. If what I'm thinking is right, then they're the ones the frost giants already captured from the prisoner transport, which means they're a set of bastards destined for Icehold. And if they're headed there, it's not for volunteering at orphanages.
Joe, I respond, who the hell are you telling to shut up, you bunch of inbred, frostbitten piss drinkers?
Oh, good one, Tronald. Strong opener.
Oh, is that right, you loudmouth pile of orc shit? You think you're funny?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was speaking to a bunch of walking disappointments. Is this the reject ward? The ones not even Icehold wanted?
Oh, big words from a bunch of half-frozen rat people who got locked up just like us. Face it, you're no better than we are.
Oh, we're a lot better than you, you piss-soaked blizzard bandit.
When I get out of here, I'm going to personally rip your head off.
The only thing you're ripping off is more excuses for your failure of a life.
You morons don't even know who we are. You're just barking like a pack of mutts who don't know they're about to be put down.
We know exactly who you are. You're the wastes of air that got locked up just like us. Which means you're no better than us, you arrogant fucking piss goblins.
Did they just call us piss goblins?
Yep, they did.
The shouting match escalates until it's just pure, unfiltered chaos, a full-blown verbal war echoing through the frozen walls.
Oh, I just realized I've got a spell that could help with our plan, guys.
Oh, you hear that, boys? She's got a spell. We should all just bow down now. What's it gonna be, sweetheart? You gonna magic us some tea and biscuits?
Just ignore them, Celestia. What is it?
Create or destroy water. I could carve a nice little hole through the ice for us so we can get out.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Nah, fuck that. Let's carve through the wall next to us instead. See who these loudmouths really are.
I'm down for that. Let's see if they're all talk or just cowards with sore throats.
Carve the hole, Celestia. Black pudding is hungry.
All right, Joe. I cast the spell, and I melt a nice little hole through the ice wall.
As you channel the spell, the thick frozen wall hisses as the ice melts away, water pooling briefly before refreezing along the edges. Unlike the door slab, this partition is significantly thinner, probably meant to separate prisoners rather than fully contain them. With just one cast, a human-sized crawl hole opens up, leading into the next cell.
All right, allow me to go first. Joe, I crawl through.
Raarh. You squeeze through the gap, the cold pressing against your skin as you emerge into the other cell. And immediately, you have an audience. There are about 15 people in here, some standing, some huddling in a corner, some half asleep on piles of thin rags. But the ones that are paying attention, the moment they see you crawl through, their faces drain of color. Unlike you, they have been stripped of their weapons and armor. Their clothes are ragged, barely enough to keep the cold out. Most of them look worn down, battered, not just physically but mentally. But the best part? The ones that were shouting the loudest before? Yeah, they visibly shit themselves.
Hello, Governor.
By this point, the rest of you have crawled through, standing at Raarh's back. The new audience, your former rivals, are now a lot less confident.
All right then. I step forward, cracking my knuckles. So, which one of you is Billy Big Bollocks?
Nobody responds. Not a word. The once loud, once aggressive prisoners suddenly lose all interest in conversation. One by one, they start looking at the floor, shifting uncomfortably, making their way to the edge of the room, their bravado melting away faster than Mite's dignity in a tavern bet. Then, a voice, not from the crowd, but from a pile of ragged furs and damp straw in the corner, where a man, not dressed in rags, but in something resembling moldy ivy leaves, slowly props himself up on one elbow, and then he grins, a lopsided, half-dazed, half-knowing grin. Why don't you join us at the table?
Well, I'll be diggity damned. First I thought I was just dreaming. Side effect of them wanderers' whispers I snuck in here. But then I thought, no, I can't be dreaming, 'cause dreams lie, but noses don't. And right now, my nose is telling me that the musk of Raarh the Destroyer just walked into my damn cage. I'm talking sweat-basted, smoked bear fat dripping, battle scar marinated, blood-dried, half-orc stank.
What the fuck are you doing here?
Oh, hell no. No fucking way. No, nope, nope. I refuse to believe this. This can't be real.
Well, that's no way to talk to an old friend, you sexy-ass wizard. And damn, Tronald, you been working out? You got that stress glow about you, looking all tense and filled with magical essence? That good life treating you bad?
I gotta be honest. On a list of things I was expecting in this cell, this was dead last. Lower than freezing to death, lower than giant torture. Bottom of the list.
You fucker, you stole... No, you didn't just steal my arcane focus. You robbed me blind, then had the absolute balls to run off like some kind of highway goblin. And now, you have the nerve, the gall, the unbelievable, unrelenting, dimension-shattering audacity to sit there in your moldy-ass druid cosplay and pretend like we're fucking friends?
Hey, whoa. Let's just pump the brakes, brother. First off, robbery is such a harsh word. Let's call it a magical redistribution of wealth.
I don't give a damn about magical redistribution, about fair play, or about your sad attempts at making theft sound noble. Give it back now.
Brother, do I look like I got a damn thing on me? I'm butt-ass naked in this frozen hellhole, and unless you're asking me to pull it out of my ass, I don't think I can help ya. Anyway, the only reason I took it was because of the Mind Whisperer.
Who's the Mind Whisperer?
It's the guy who whispers into my mind.
Expand.
Don't know much more about him than that, he whispers. I listen. Told me to take your fancy wizard bauble and bring it to him. So I did. Seemed like an honest guy, you know? And honesty's important. You gotta have honest folks in your life. Folks who help the needy. Back where I'm from, we had this guy, old Gus, who'd give you half a loaf of bread, no questions asked. Even if you didn't ask for it, it was weird, actually. Like, who just hands out half a loaf? You're either generous or you're not, Gus.
Kobe, focus. You gave my focus to Visuriel. What then? What happened next?
Oh, he was real grateful. Said that even for a half-baked clone, I proved my worth, and I can be free, which was kind of weird, because I didn't know I wasn't free.
Excuse me?
Right? That's what I said. I was like, hold up, what do you mean I can be free? Because I thought I was already living my best life, but apparently not. Apparently I was on some kind of leash, which is weird, because I don't recall ever signing up for that. Anyway, He said some real fancy words about me fulfilling my role, and then poof, next thing I know, I'm out of there. Except, not out of there because now I'm in here. So it's been a real mixed bag of experiences, honestly.
So, who is this guy?
I'm with you on that one, Alden. No clue.
Oh, he's another test tube guy. One of Rick's little science projects made under Vesurial's orders. Name's Kobe von Jabroni. He was with us for what, a day? Before he stabbed us in the back and ran off.
Oh, sounds like a nice guy.
Do you want me to eat him?
Not yet, Mite, but maybe. Tell me, Kobe, how the hell did you end up here? Because if I had to guess, you got captured by Solaris and transported to Icehold, and low-level criminals don't get sent to Icehold. So how exactly did you manage that?
Oh, ho, ho, brother. Now that's a story. Buckle in, because this one's got twists, turns, and at least one very regrettable decision involving a boat. So there I was, free as a bird, and I mean that literally, because I wild-shaped into one. Wings flapping, soaring through the sky, nothing but the wind in my feathers and destiny on my tail. A beautiful thing, really. Except, well, problem number one, birds get tired, and I was flying for hours, and it was real misty, thick enough that I couldn't see where the hell I was. So I thought, all right, Kobe, just land on something, anything. I see a big shape in the fog, looks like a barn or something, so I go, perfect. And I land. Turns out I was in the goddamn ocean. And that barn? Yeah, it was a boat.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Now, problem number two, wild shape runs out. So poof, back to my birthday suit, stark naked, standing on a moving ship in the middle of the ocean, which, wasn't ideal, but it was dark and I figured, hell, might as well get some sleep before I figure out how to get off this thing. So I find a nice cozy little room, empty, comfy, real quiet, perfect sleeping conditions. Next thing I know, I'm being dragged out of the room I picked by some real fancy bastard with too many medals and not enough patience. And, I panicked, which I feel like is fair. So I started swinging, self-defense. Maybe I got a little too heated, because next thing I know, I knocked the guy out cold.
You accidentally knocked out a nobleman?
Allegedly. We can never really know what happened, right? Could have been the wind, could have been divine intervention. Who's to say? But either way, they restrained me, locked me up, and the next thing I know, I'm on trial for attempted assassination of some lord.
Wait, how did you go from knocking out a guy to attempted assassination?
That's what I said, but apparently, when you mysteriously appear naked on a noble's ship, then deck him in the face, people start jumping to conclusions. So trial happens, real dramatic stuff, lots of pointing, lots of he's a menace to society, which, fair assessment. And then boom, off I go. Now, problem number 3, I would have been fine just rotting in some fancy little noble prison, but no. Apparently, I got too friendly with the other inmates. Started sharing stories, getting them all riled up. Next thing I know, there's a riot. Now, I'm not saying I started it, but I was definitely the spark, which apparently is enough to get me labeled a high-profile criminal and fast-tracked for Icehold.
So you accidentally started a prison riot?
Accidentally, and in my defense, it was very successful. They had to bring in reinforcements. They called me a tactical agitator. Never been so proud of a title in my life. So, now I'm getting carted to Icehold, which sucked. Cold, miserable, surrounded by a bunch of dicks who actually deserved it, when all of a sudden, the cart gets hit.
Let me guess, frost giants?
Boom. Nailed it. Frost giants came storming in, tossing guards and prisoners alike like they were made of paper. And me? I just kinda hit the ground, played dead, and waited for it to be over. Real smooth, real tactical. Next thing I know, I'm being hauled off, brought here, and now I'm kinda just vibing, man.
You're a moron, Kobe.
Aw, thank you, man. That's real kind.
It wasn't a compliment.
Footsteps crunch against the frost. The man moving toward you is built like a walking fist. Broad shoulders, thick neck, and a jaw that doesn't quite fit his skull, wider at the tip than the base, like it was meant for someone bigger. His lower teeth push against his lip, giving him a permanent half snarl. His knuckles are wrecked, thick with old scar tissue, the kind that comes from throwing more punches than he ever blocked. His clothes are patched together rags, hanging loose like he's used to heavier armor.
Hey, Kobe, you think your friends here might be interested in helping us get the hell out of here?
Are you deaf? We're not his friends.
Right, sure. Not friends. Just a bunch of people who know each other, have emotional history, seem to have trust issues, but still miraculously ended up in the same prison together. You know, like friends do.
That's an interesting take on friendship.
Nah, see, it's real simple. You ever had a dog that ran away, but then a year later, the dog shows back up, tail between its legs, and you're pissed, right? Because that little bastard ran off. But at the same time, you're kinda happy because, well, it's still your dog. And now? You're just deciding whether you want to let it back in the house or kick it out again. That's what you'll sound like.
That was far too well thought out.
Oh yeah, these guys think all the time. They got big plans, huge, but not enough brain cells between them to make them work.
I heard that!
I highly doubt we're going to help you with anything. I mean, let's be honest. What are you? Murderers? Rapists? Slavers? Why the hell should we even consider working with you?
Damn, that's a bit harsh, buddy.
He cracks his thick knuckles, rolling his shoulders like the words don't sting, but the shift in his tone says otherwise.
You don't even know us, and you're already painting us as monsters. Bit of a reach, don't you think?
Then go on, tell us. Tell us what you're in here for, all of you, and then we'll see where we stand. Oh, and Joe, I cast Zone of Truth.
The magic spreads, invisible but absolute. It settles over the room, unseen but impossible to ignore, and judging by the way the stranger's jaw tightens, the way his eyes dart for half a second, trying to find an escape that doesn't exist, he feels it too. He exhales sharply, rolling his jaw, the muscle in his cheek twitching like he's physically fighting against the spell. But when the words come, they're real, unfiltered. No bravado, no posturing, just truth.
All right, fine. You want honesty? You got it. Me and my boys, Vaelin, Crag, Taran, and Edris. We worked under Lord Stathos. He's the son of Lord Varthan Stathos, one of the Emperor's councilmen. Real straight-cut type. The father, I mean, not the son. The son, he's a snake. The kind of spoiled noble prick who drinks with you in the back rooms, laughs at your jokes, but the second shit goes sideways, he suddenly doesn't know your name. We handled his dirty work, kept things quiet for him, moved coin, handled debts, made sure certain problems disappeared. Yeah, we killed, yeah, we robbed, but we never raped. We're not animals. We've still got rules. You hurt a kid, you're done. You take from someone who can't even eat, you're done. You make enemies for no reason, you're done. That's street law. That's real law. You can be a bastard, but at least be a bastard with honor. We all grew up in Drudgemire, the 5 of us anyway. If you know it, you know it. No one gets out of Drudgemire clean. You either rot in the gutter or you climb, and the only way to climb is to get your hands even dirtier than they already are. We wanted something better. This was the only way we saw to get it.
Joke, do I know where Drudgemire is?
Roll an intelligence check.
That's a 19.
So, Drudgemire is probably one of the worst slums inside Solaris. The parts of the city you saw when you were there, the noble estates, the grand plazas, the merchant districts, that was Solaris for the privileged, the rich, the powerful, the ones who never have to think about where their next meal is coming from. But the further you go down, the worse it gets. There are poor districts. Those are bad. Then there are the slums. Worse. Then there are the places even the slum dwellers look down on. And at the very bottom of that pit, where the streets are swamps of filth and crime, where no one comes to help, where the guards won't even walk without 10 men at their back, is Drudgemire. It's not just poverty, it's desperation. It's a place where people aren't born with nothing, they're born already in debt. A place where survival is the only law, and the people who make it out, they make it out by stepping over the bodies of the ones who didn't.
I can't chastise you for doing what you had to do. Drudgemire isn't a place where people get choices. You survive however you can, and from the sound of it, you lot did what you thought was right, even if it was dirty. I've seen people with far more privilege turn to far worse things for a hell of a lot less reason. So, I get it. Doesn't mean I trust you. Doesn't mean I'll help you yet. But I get it. What's your name anyway?
Kragus. That's the name I go by anyway, the one that's mine, not the one I was born with. That one belonged to a kid who didn't make it out of Drudgemire. So, does that mean you'll help us?
Not just yet, Kragus. You want our help? Then we need to know exactly who we're dealing with. I want every single one of your boys, and the rest of them, to step into this zone of truth and speak who they are, what they did, and why they're here. Because if we're going to risk anything on you, we need to be damn sure you're worth the risk.
All right, fair enough. All right, you heard the man. All of you, over here. You speak, you say your reasons. No lies, no bullshit. We'll see where we stand after that.
So, one by one, they step forward, crossing into the zone of truth, their breath curling in the cold air as they speak. First, Kragus's boys, Vaelin, Crag, Taran, and Edris. Their stories match up, reinforcing what he told you. Born in the gutters of Drudgemire, climbing their way out the only way they could. They don't flinch, don't try to soften their past. They own it. Yeah, they've killed. Yeah, they've stolen, but they had rules, they had purpose, not just to destroy, but to survive. Then come the others. About 8 more men shuffle forward, one by one. Their stories aren't as tightly woven because they weren't part of the same crew. But what stands out, what really starts to sink in, is that every single one of them is from a slum somewhere. Some from Cyrus, some from lesser cities, but all of them cut from the same cloth. And some of their reasons, they don't fit. A man who was caught stealing bread for his family. Another who got into a bar fight with the wrong noble's son. One who was picked up on a petty smuggling charge, sentenced to 6 months in a cell, only to wake up shipped off to Icehold instead. It doesn't make sense. Icehold is the most secure prison in Ouroros. It's meant for traitors, war criminals, monsters that can't be allowed to walk free. And yet, some of these men, they were just thieves, fighters, poor men trying to get by. They talk about how they were transferred, how one day they were sitting in some minor city jail, doing short time for minor crimes, and then out of nowhere, they were shipped off with the worst of the worst, like someone was filling space, like Icehold wasn't being used just for its intended purpose, but to pack bodies in wherever they could. But before you can press further, you notice them, 2 men, sitting in the far corner, not moving, not speaking. They don't meet your eyes. Their shoulders are tight, their hands clenched in their laps, and the tension in their posture is different. Not just fear of the cold or fear of the frost giants, but fear of what happens if they step forward. They don't want to be part of this conversation, and that is what makes them stand out.
Oi, you two, in the circle, now.
One of them flinches at your words, shoulders jerking up, fingers twitching like he's fighting the instinct to run, but his legs stay planted, as if he knows there's nowhere to go. He just shakes his head, barely, quickly, like a dog bracing for a hit it's expecting but can't dodge. The other, he doesn't move, doesn't react, just stares ahead, eyes locked on the floor, hands clasped together in his lap. Then slowly, he raises one hand and starts making signs.
Oh, you're coming in. Either you step into the circle and speak, or none of you are getting out. We're not negotiating on a person-by-person basis. The giants won't tolerate it. It's all or nothing.
But still they don't move. The first man stiffens, shoulders locking up like every muscle in his body is screaming at him to stay put. His breath shudders and he starts blinking too much, like someone stalling for time, like a man weighing how much worse things will get if he takes that step. The other remains silent, but he keeps signing. Kragus moves up to them.
Get in here right now, or I'll rip your arms off and bash your teeth out with them.
Kragus, wait, I think this one can't speak. I step forward, eyeing the silent man, then reach out and pluck a single strand of his hair, holding it between my fingers. But that's not a problem. Hey, I'm going to need you to think of why you're here, all right?
The man nods.
Awesome. Then I'm going to ritual cast Harvest Memories on him.
Okay. The world shifts and suddenly, you are not in this prison anymore. You are somewhere smaller, darker, dirtier. A child's eyes blink against the dim glow of candlelight, dust hanging in the air like tiny golden flecks. A single-room home, if you can call it that, where thin walls barely hold against the wind, where the floor is cold even in summer, where hunger is something you don't notice anymore because it's always there. There is yelling, always yelling. A man's voice, angry, loud, too loud. A woman's voice, tired, breaking, pleading. Then a crash, then silence. The child doesn't move, doesn't react, just stares at the wall because that's what you do when you don't want to be noticed. Then suddenly, hands, grabbing, pulling, dragging, a voice in his ear, sharp, cruel. Why won't you say something? He wants to. He tries. Nothing comes. Just the sound of his own breath choking in his throat. The man gets angrier. Fucking useless. A blow. The world goes dark. And when it comes back, the child is outside, lying on the dirt, staring up at the sky. There's blood in his mouth, but no sound. There is never any sound. And from that moment forward, there never would be. The memories fast forward, flickering like a candle guttering in the wind. Years pass, and every single one of them leads back to a cage. Petty crimes, a stolen loaf of bread, a coin purse taken off a noble's belt when he wasn't looking, a fight he didn't start, but got thrown into a cell for anyway. No voice to defend himself, no way to explain. The world made choices for him. And in the end, when someone needed a body to fill a space, they chose his. A magistrate's bored glance over the charges, a signature on a paper that sealed his fate. Transfer to Icehold, no further appeal. And that was it. That was all it took. They were looking for numbers, and he was just another name on the list. The memory fades, the present rushing back in like a cold wind to the face. The man sits exactly where he was before. Same blank expression, same silent hands. But now, you know.
I pat the man on the back and nod toward him, offering a small smile. He's good. Then, without hesitation, I turn toward the other, the one still sitting stiff, refusing to step forward. I pluck a strand of his hair between my fingers.
The second your hand moves toward him, he jerks back, a sharp, instinctive reaction, not out of defiance, but out of fear. His body tenses, breath quickens, but before he can fully pull away, Kragus and two of his boys are on him. They grab his arms, holding him down, not roughly, not with rage, just absolute certainty. There is no escape.
Awesome, that makes this a lot easier. Joe, I pluck a piece of his hair and begin casting Harvest Memory.
Doesn't the person need to be actively thinking of the memories Tronald wants to see?
Yeah, that's pretty much how he described it. He can only see what the guy chooses to focus on.
No problem. Joe, I cast Suggestion on the man. Think of your crimes until you are released.
He rolls a 14, which fails. The suggestion takes hold. His breathing evens out. His eyes, which had been darting around in panic, suddenly glaze over, as if his mind is drifting somewhere else.
Very creative approach, Alden. But if we were going to burn an actual spell slot, we could have just suggested he tell us about it.
True, but I didn't want to kill your whole thing you've got going on.
Huh. Well, I guess I appreciate that. Well, I'm nearly done with this now. I focus again, letting the spell take root, ready to unravel yet another story.
The world tilts, a lurching, nauseating shift as the magic takes hold, pulling you from the frozen prison into someone else's past. But this time it is wrong. The air is thick, heavy, humid, the stench of stale sweat, rotting wood, and old blood pressing against your lungs like a vice. A small room, dimly lit, barely furnished, a table with dice scattered across it, a dirty knife stuck into the wood like a warning. The walls are thin, and beyond them, the sound of sobbing carries, muffled, choked, desperate. The man, you, hears it but does not react. Because he's used to it. Because it does not matter. The coin sits heavy in his hand, dull in the candlelight, the weight of it pressing against his palm with the familiar comfort of a job done. He turns it over once, twice, feeling the edge where it's been worn down from use. Good payment? More than enough. But it's not just payment. It's silence. Because loose ends are dangerous. Because the deal is done. Because witnesses talk. And witnesses are easy to bury. He stands, stepping through a narrow doorway, the wooden floor creaking beneath his boots. The air is colder in here, the stone walls pressing in tighter, the scent of unwashed skin and fear thick in the back of his throat. A child, no more than 10, maybe 11, sits on the floor, knees hugged to their chest, flinching at his shadow. Their face is dirty, streaked with dried tears, their breath coming in sharp little gasps as they press further into the corner. The rope around their wrists has rubbed the skin raw, but they haven't fought it. Not in hours. Because there is no point fighting. Because the deal is already done. Because they've stopped hoping. His voice comes low, steady, the same way you'd calm a horse before cutting its throat. Not your fault, kid. The words are empty. Just noise to fill the space, something to smother the silence before the blade does. He reaches for the knife at his belt, the metal catching a glint of candlelight as he steps forward. And the memory cuts. Snaps back to darkness, a sudden, lurching pull back to reality, like falling from a height you never meant to climb.
I stumble back, breath catching in my throat, my balance gone, legs buckling. I hit the ground hard, my palms scraping against the rough ice. I don't say anything at first. I can't. The words are there, trapped, tangled. My mouth opens, but nothing comes out. Because how do you even say it? How do you even form words for what I just lived? Eventually, I manage. He takes children, ransoms them. Then I swallow hard, but the bile in my throat doesn't go down. He kills them after he gets paid, so they can't talk, so they can't give him away.
The reaction is instant. Kragus doesn't even hesitate. The second the words leave Tronald's mouth, he and his men move like wolves, scenting blood. They drop the man, letting him collapse onto his knees, But before he can even register what's happening, a boot collides with his face, snapping his head back with a sickening crunch. Another fist slams into his jaw, teeth scattering across the frozen stone, a spray of red splattering onto the ice like paint. Kragus moves in again, grabbing him by the collar, dragging his barely conscious body up, just to drive his knuckles into his ribs, a brutal, relentless rhythm. 1 hit, 2 hits, 3, 4, until the man is spitting blood, choking on his own breath. Another one of his men, Valen, stomps onto his outstretched hand, fingers crunching under the weight, a garbled scream ripping from the bastard's throat. No hesitation, no mercy, no stopping. This isn't a fight, it's an execution. The sound of flesh and bone breaking fills the chamber, raw, wet, merciless. The man doesn't even get the chance to beg. Because men like him, they don't deserve the chance.
Is he dead?
He certainly seems that way. The last skull-shattering punch, the one that left his head half caved in against the floor, was what sealed the deal. There's no movement, just the slow spread of dark crimson soaking into the ice beneath him, steam rising from the warmth of his own blood against the frozen stone.
All right, I cast Cure Wounds on him.
What the hell are you doing?
Shut the fuck up, Raarh. I press a hand to his shattered chest, magic flooding back into his ruined body, pulling torn flesh together, knitting bone back into place. It's not gentle. This isn't some merciful act. It's a reawakening. Then I lean down, close enough that my voice is the only thing in his world. Why? Why did you do what you did?
He tries to speak, mouth moving sluggishly, voice barely more than a broken rasp. I did it because...
Before he can finish, I pull out my pistol, press the barrel against his already fractured skull, and with a 22 to hit, I fire. I blow a faint wisp of smoke off the barrel, then finish his sentence for him. Because you're a monster. I let the words sit there for a moment before I holster my gun. Sorry, guys. I just felt like I had to kill him twice.
Nah, I get that. I cast Healing Word on him, Joe.
The energy ripples through him once again, snapping his body back from the void for the second time. His body spasms, his lungs dragging in a breath that wasn't meant to be taken.
Then I give my symbiote partial control and eat him, slowly.
As Mite surrenders to the hunger, something inside him shifts. A shadow spills from his skin, slithering over his arms, creeping up his neck like living ink. His body stretches, tendrils of darkness writhe, pulsing as they crawl over his frame. The whites vanish, swallowed by the abyss, leaving only 2 sickly, glowing orbs staring down at the man who dares to breathe his final breaths. Mite's voice is still there, but layered beneath it, another voice emerges, twisted, guttural, dripping with a perverse delight that doesn't just promise death, but revels in the fear before it.
Oh, you look delicious. I can smell the rot in you, the fear. You killed them, the little ones, the ones who cried for their mothers, before you snuffed them out like candle flames. Tell me, did you like it? Did you relish in it? Did you feel powerful? I bet you did.
It starts with the first bite. The moment Mite's teeth sink in, the man screams. Not the kind of scream that begs for help because there is no help coming, but the kind of scream that knows this is how it ends. He tries to move, tries to fight, but Kragus's men are still holding him down. Not out of hatred anymore, not out of rage, but out of pure, cold obligation. They know men like this don't deserve to run. The wet, tearing sound of flesh being pulled from bone fills the air, his body thrashing, but the struggle is fading, his voice choking, the screams turning into desperate, muffled sobs. And then, they stop. The silence is thick, heavier than before. And what's worse, nobody looks away. Usually, people would be horrified, they'd turn their heads, they'd try to block it out, but not here. Here, every single person in the chamber watches, some with grim satisfaction, some with cold indifference, but none of them stop it, because none of them care to.
Burp. Yummy. Well, at least we don't have to explain to the frost giants why there's a dead body.
Damn, brother. That was colder than a snake in a deep freeze. That was like watching a raccoon eat a possum, but the possum deserved it. That was like going to a sermon, but the preacher's just ripping people apart instead of reading scripture. That was like if Karma put on a pair of steel-toed boots and went to work. Phew, I gotta sit down after that one.
Yeah, well, you're lucky that's not you, Kobe. And trust me, I'm still thinking about it.
Well, brother, I appreciate your honesty, but I can say with my whole heart that I am damn glad you've come to the decision you've made. I mean, I'm all for new experiences, but getting chewed up and swallowed ain't really on my bucket list.
All right, now that that's over with, I guess it's safe to say we'll try to find a way to help you guys. But it's not going to be by breaking out, not by cutting throats or sneaking off into the night. It's going to be by talking to them, explaining the situation, and showing them why we are worth more as allies than corpses.
Well, I ain't gonna sit here and pretend I like the idea of putting my life in someone else's hands. But I ain't gonna say you're wrong either. You seem to know what you're doing, so we trust your judgment, I guess. What's the plan?
How would you all feel about making some serious steps against Icehold? Hell, how would you feel about making some ground against the Empire itself?
Huh? You mean like a rebellion type thing?
To put it simply, yes. You all have connections in the underworld, right? People who move in the dark, people who don't answer to the nobles and their puppet masters. If we free you, then is it fair to say you work for us? You won't be sold down the river like Stathos did to you. You won't be tossed aside the second you're inconvenient. You'll be paid well. You'll have a place, a purpose, something bigger than scraping by, bigger than stealing to survive. No more scrounging, no more looking over your shoulder, no more just surviving. I'm talking about real power, real freedom. Are you interested?
Give me a persuasion check, Tronald.
Guidance.
That's a 13 plus 5 for 18 total.
He exhales through his nose, shaking his head slightly, not in disapproval, but like he's processing something he never thought he'd hear. When he finally speaks, his voice is rough, but there's something else underneath it now, something real.
You know what, Tronald? Real work is all me and my boys have ever wanted, but no one would spit on us if we were on fire. No one ever saw us as anything more than gutter rats, criminals, expendable bodies. But you save us from this, and you have our loyalty. Not just for coin, not just for survival, but because if you're really going to war against the people who threw us away, then we want in. On my name, my blood, and my past. If you get us out of this, we're yours.
See, Tronald? We never would have found these guys if we hadn't been honest with Skadrith. Everything happens for a reason.
I guess you're right about that, Celestia. I mean, we already had those certain people we met in Waterdeep, but expansion never hurts. And if these guys had the pockets of even 10% of the underworld, at least now we're bringing in another portion of support, not from coin, but from loyalty.
So, shall we just wait then? Guess there's nothing else to do. I've got some dice if anyone's up for games while we wait.
Oh, hell yeah. I love a good dice game.
Ooh, what games should we play?
You guys heard of Dwellings and Demons? We could give that a go.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
What is it?
All right, so imagine this. You're a bunch of adventurers, right? But instead of, actually adventuring, you're sitting in a dungeon, pretending to be adventurers inside a game. You make characters, you've got your classes, your abilities, your backstories, real deep stuff. And then there's a dwelling keeper who guides you through a story, rolls dice to determine outcomes, makes you do checks for the dumbest shit, and basically just decides whether or not you live or die.
So, it's a game for when you're stuck in a dungeon where you pretend to be heroes stuck in a dwelling, fighting demons?
No, it's not always a dungeon. That's just because we're stuck in one now. Usually you're in a tavern or someone's house, sitting around a table playing as adventurers who could be doing anything. Raiding tombs, slaying demons, saving villages, whatever the dwelling keeper comes up with.
Right, but in the game, do our characters ever sit down and play their own little version of this game? Because if not, it's not truly realistic.
I mean, you could, but that'd be stupid.
I don't get it. Why not just be an actual adventurer?
Oh, Raarh, brother. You don't get it because you ain't got the big brain for it. See, it's like this. We're adventurers, playing a game about adventurers, who could theoretically play a game about adventurers, who could also...
No, that's where I draw the line.
To be honest, it's probably too long for right now. Let's just play liar's dice. But hey, when we're out of here, and if we ever get any free time, we could always get a Dwellings and Demons club going. Could be interesting.
Huh. Imagine that. A bunch of criminals and warlords sitting around pretending to be heroes. Yeah, all right. Could be fun.
All right, then we pass some time playing games, getting to know each other. But listen, if nothing changes in a few hours, we need to start thinking of new moves. So, since we're already on the topic of Dwellings and Demons, you guys should really check out this nifty new app I found, AI Game Master. It's tremendous, absolutely tremendous. A whole RPG experience, and you can take it anywhere. Not just some bugged out AI chat thing, but the real deal.
Right. Because the last time I tried to run a D&D game in GPT, I got about 8 turns in before it forgot basically everything.
Well, not this. AI Game Master does it all. Inventory management, quests, combat, you name it. We're talking full turn-based battles, NPCs that actually join your party, leveling up, and real progression.
Wait, so it'd actually track gear and stats?
That's right. Keeps it all for you. Look at this. Items, stats, everything's right there. Super clean. Beautiful interface.
But how many times can you really play it before it's just the same story?
But my dear simpleton friend, that's where you're wrong. It's infinite adventures. You start a campaign, and the AI generates a brand new world based on your actions every single time. You want to go off the rails? You can. You want to play something that's never been done before? You can. Trust me, I've tried.
All right, but how's the player base? Is this some tiny niche thing, or are people actually using it?
It's already huge. People are building entire worlds, sharing them, crafting crazy stories. You can take part in other players' adventures, remix stuff, and even create local groups. Total creative freedom.
So, can I make a world where everyone just sings and my enemies have to fight in rap battles?
You could, and it'd probably be terrible in the best way possible. You want to play fantasy, science fiction, horror, mix them all together? No problem.
I gotta ask, how immersive is it? Is it just text, or does it actually help you visualize the world?
It's not just walls of text, it actually generates images to bring the story to life.
That's crazy, man.
Alright, but what if I run out of tokens? Does my rap battle game just stop?
Hell no. And that's the best part. They just launched this new champion system, so even when you're out of tokens, you can still interact with your favorite characters.
All right, I'm in. How do I get started?
Easy. Just download AI Game Master on the Play Store or App Store. And get this, we've got a special deal for you guys.
Did somebody say deal?
Will you just get lost? Anyway, it's an exclusive promo code just for you all. AI Guy 20. That's 20 free tokens and 20% off subscriptions. Just head to the subscription menu, enter the code, and you're good to go.
Well, you heard the man. Get it downloaded and make sure you're sharing your crazy worlds in our Discord.
One more question.
Shoot.
Does it let me run a world where I rule Mars?
I'm sure you'll find a way.
Nice.
The hours pass slowly, but not in silence. At first, the tension still lingers. Kragus's crew still watching you, measuring you, as if trying to figure out who you really are. But as the games start, as the dice hit the ground, as faux wagers are made, the ice between you all starts to thaw. Not the walls, but the space between men and women who are beginning to see each other as more than just cellmates. Jokes are exchanged, stories are told. Mite keeps making bets that make no sense. Raarh accuses everyone of cheating at least once. Kobe is just happy to be included. There's grumbling and laughter, a few grudging smiles from Kragus's boys, and for the first time in what feels like forever, the weight of the prison walls doesn't feel as heavy for them. 2 hours pass. Then, footsteps. Heavy footsteps. And then, the unmistakable sound of ice scraping against ice. The massive door slab is being moved.
Quick, guys, back to the other cell.
We all run to the other cell, Joe.
You scramble back through the hole, moving as quickly and quietly as possible, squeezing through just in time to drop back into place on the other side. And just as you do, the door fully opens. Standing in the doorway, taking up nearly all of it, is Horath. And his expression? Snarling, unimpressed.
Horath, before you say anything, I know what we've done. And I won't stand here and apologize for surviving. That's not how warriors do things, and I won't insult you by pretending otherwise. But that doesn't mean we don't understand the weight of it. It doesn't mean we don't feel the loss, that we don't see the grief in Skadrith's eyes. Before we met you, before we set foot in this place, we didn't know a damn thing about frost giants, about giant kin at all. We thought we understood strength, thought we knew what it meant to endure, but in the short time we've been here, we've learned more than we ever expected. We've seen how you carry your history in your bones, how your elders don't just fade, they become the land itself. We've seen how you don't just fight for yourselves, you fight for each other, your kin, your blood, your ancestors who stand in silence beneath your feet, watching, waiting to see if you are worthy of their memory. You do not break, you do not bow, you do not forget. And now, neither will we. Because now, we understand. Now we see why this loss matters. And more importantly, we know we can make it right. So say the word, Horath. Give us the chance. Let us fix this.
The hairs on the back of your neck stand on end as Horath stares at you, with the weight of what's about to be decided. This is not someone to be swayed easily. This is not someone who bends to words. And yet, this moment is crucial. Give me a persuasion check, Tronald. With disadvantage. I'll be open with you here. You're looking for a 20 or higher.
Isn't your charisma modifier 0, though, Tronald?
Yep. I'm going to use my Portent 18 for this, Joe.
And I'm going to give you a flash of genius.
Absolutely awesome. Okay. Horath's eyes narrow slightly, the muscles in his jaw tightening as he lets out a slow, low exhale, mist curling thick into the frigid air.
You speak the truth, human. For I have seen Vornhall and Jorvanger with my own eyes. I have spoken to those who watched them fall. You did not slaughter them like prey. You did not strike from the shadows, like cowards. You fought them as warriors. You stood your ground, and they stood theirs. Steel against steel. Strength against strength. And because of that, this is no crime to be judged. It is a battle to be remembered. Hrimvaldir's thoughts stretch beyond this moment. This is not a burden for him to carry. This matter is settled. Now, we must decide what happens next.
I take a deep breath and let it out. God damn it, that was scary. Anyway, I say to him, thank you, Horath, and we meant what we said. We will fix this. Where are they now?
I have brought them back with me. They are to be sent to Vornskull, where the fallen are laid to rest. Their names will be carved into the ice, their battle remembered. They will not be forgotten.
Then we can bring them back. I step forward, Joe. I am a healer. I wield divine magic strong enough to restore life itself. Vornhall and Jorvanger do not have to be laid to rest. They can rise again. This does not have to end in mourning, Horath. It can end in restoration.
You have this ability?
It's true, she does. And she's incredibly powerful. If anyone can do it, she can.
Horath is silent for a long moment, his massive form completely still, but you can see the thoughts turning behind his eyes. Then finally, he gives a single, slow nod.
Then we will go to them now.
You follow Horath through the cavernous halls, the frost-covered stone groaning under his steps as he leads you deeper into the stronghold. The air is colder here, the silence heavier, the only sound the distant howl of the wind slipping through unseen cracks in the ice. And then, you see them. Two massive figures laid upon a raised platform of solid ice, their weapons placed beside them. Their bodies are still, their skin pale and frostbitten, but the wounds remain fresh, a stark reminder of what was lost. One of them bears a gaping wound to the chest, a slash from a blade that cut too deep. The other, missing a section of flesh from his side, the section that Mite ate.
Uh-oh.
Skadrith is already there. She kneels beside them, her massive hands resting on the ice, staring down at their still forms. She doesn't react as you approach, doesn't turn, doesn't acknowledge you, but you can feel the grief radiating off of her. Then, without looking at you, she speaks to Horath in the frost giant tongue.
Trumvor skill, Horath.
Thrumbor drakkar Skadrith.
Drakkar.
Vorulaskan. Throlm vor rektar.
Drakkar vorul.
Drakkar vorul. Jorun rektar. Skeluthran.
Skån vektran. Vek skel vek rektar.
Uldan vek drakkar. Myr vek vektar. Vår vek skorn inras. Introksmål. Vringhas.
Then show me, Horath. Show me if this power is real. Show me if the storm still listens.
Horath turns to you, his massive head dipping in a slow nod.
All right, Joe. I step forward, and I can feel all eyes on me. I then kneel beside Vornhall's body, and I press my hand against his skin. I take another deep breath, then I reach into my pouch, but I do not reach for a diamond. Instead, I reach for my blade. The steel catches the dim light of the chamber as I turn it over in my palm. For a long moment, I stare at it, my breath slow, before pressing the tip against the skin of my wrist, and then I slice. A sharp gasp catches in my throat, the warmth of my own blood spilling down my hand, thick and red, dripping onto the giant's cold skin below.
Oh my. Are you sure you wish to expend favor on such a beast? A creature of brute strength and frozen tradition, whose mind is bound to the past, whose hands have only ever known war?
Yes, there's no other way. I don't have the diamonds, so I have to do this free method.
Free? Oh, my dear Celestia.
Nothing is free. Not life, not death, not even the breath in your lungs. You have simply learned to pay in ways you do not yet recognize. But very well. If you wish to bind yourself further, if you wish to pour your own essence into this corpse of ice and bone, then do so.
The reaction is instant. The frost-covered stone beneath you hisses as the blood seeps into it, spreading across Vornhal's massive frame like veins of molten heat. And then, a sound. Not from you, not from any of them. From him. A ragged inhale, broken and raw, as if air is forcing its way into lungs that had forgotten how to breathe. His body jerks, fingers twitching, breath turning from shallow gasps into something deeper, heavier. But his skin remains pale, his eyes shut, not yet awake, but alive. You take 47 points of damage, Celestia.
What the hell was that?
Celestia, what are you doing? You're supposed to use diamonds, not yourself.
Damn, girl, you didn't even flinch. Respect, but also deep concern.
Well, it worked, didn't it?
Yeah, but why did it work?
It doesn't matter.
I beg to fucking differ.
Joe, I try to walk, but I barely take a step before I collapse. Knees slamming against the frozen stone, my breath coming in ragged bursts. I look down at my hands, at my arms, and I see it. Beneath my skin, blackened veins twist like ink seeping through parchment, pulsing with something unnatural. I force myself to speak, voice weak, barely a whisper. Sorry, Skadrith. I'll have to do Jorvenger tomorrow. Then I black out.
Shit! Celestia! I rush forward, dropping to one knee beside her. I grab her wrist, checking for a pulse.
It's there, but weak.
My eyes trail down to her arms, where her veins have blackened beneath her skin, like something is twisting inside her, poisoning her from the inside out. What the hell is this?
This isn't normal. This isn't just exhaustion. Something is wrong. I kneel beside her as well. This is something deeper than magic, older, contractual, and it sure as hell didn't come from divine benevolence. Whatever she did, whatever agreement she made with Vizuriel, it's costing her.
We need to undo this, or at least slow it down. Joe, I cast Dispel Magic on the wounds.
Nothing happens.
She knew this was the price, the cost of her power, paid in full. And she knew it when she did it. She chose this. And I know in her mind, that means she doesn't want us coddling her now.
As you're all huddled around Celestia, the sound of approaching footsteps echoes through the cavern. A frost giant steps forward, whispering something low and urgent into Hrorkath's ear. Hrorkath listens, his expression unreadable, then turns to you all.
We must go. Rimvaldir has come to a conclusion.
We can't just leave her here. She's barely breathing. She needs help.
Yeah, how about we don't abandon our cleric who just bled herself out to bring back one of your kin?
Enough. You have redeemed yourselves in my eyes, small ones. You have fought with honor. You have spoken with truth. And she has given of herself for the sake of my kin. That is not a debt I will ignore. I will see to her. She will not be alone. But you must go now. Go and speak to the last son.
Skadrith kneels beside Celestia. She is no longer your enemy, no longer the grieving warrior sharpening a blade against your existence. She's a guardian now, and if she says Celestia will be safe, then she will be.
All right, I take one last look at Celestia, then back to Hrorkath. Then let's go see what decision awaits us.
You follow Hrorkath through the cavernous halls. None of you speak. You just walk, the crunch of frost underfoot the only sound. And then, you enter the chamber where you first stood before Rimvaldir. But this time, he is not alone. 3 other frost giants stand around him, massive figures carved from the same ice and stone as the halls themselves. These are not warriors. These are not simple elders. These are leaders, giants who have weathered storms that have outlived entire empires. Not nearly as big as Rimvaldir, but at least 70 feet tall. Hrorkath steps aside, ushering you forward, and then Rimvaldir speaks.
I have decided. We will help you. Not just to guide you to where they mine, but to strike alongside you. We will bring the weight of ice and stone, of thunder and storm, upon those who desecrate our Jotunskul. This is not just your war, it is ours. and we will fight together.
That's incredible. I step forward, nodding once, letting the words sink in before I speak. Thank you for this, Hrimvaldir, truly.
Good, then it is decided. Rest. Gather your strength. We march as soon as the storm settles.
One more thing, Hrimvaldir. We met some of the humans you captured. Why? What were they taken for? What purpose do they serve?
Blood for blood. We planned to negotiate, to barter life for life. We have taken 130. If they did not leave our transcended elders in peace, then we would take their own. If they wished to steal from the past, then we would erase their future.
So, this is the thing. That's never gonna work. Those prisoners, they're not hired miners. They're criminals, expendable in the eyes of Icehold. You could kill every last one of them, and it wouldn't change a damn thing. Icehold wouldn't bargain because Icehold doesn't care about them.
And we recently figured out that most of them aren't even as serious criminals as we thought. It's all been a ploy, a way for Ouroros to get slave labor to harvest your fallen. They aren't just secluding high-risk people. They're filling up Icehold with bodies so they can keep stripping your elders down to the bone.
Yeah, we don't know if all of them are innocent, but the ones we met, they don't deserve Icehold. Yeah, some of them probably deserve prison, but we were always told Icehold was for monsters, for people too dangerous to let walk free. And none of the ones we met seemed like monsters. Well, apart from, never mind, that's irrelevant.
Then what do you suggest?
I suggest we free them. We give them a choice to walk away or to stand with us. These people have been seen as expendable, worthless, thrown into cages to rot or be used up. Not because of their crimes, but because they were convenient. The system they were trapped in never gave them a say in what happened to them. We do. The ones who stay, the ones who choose to fight alongside us, they won't do it because they were forced. They won't do it because they were ordered. They'll fight because they hate Icehold just as much as you do. They'll fight because loyalty isn't bought, it's earned. And if they choose to stand beside us, they will fight not as prisoners, not as castaways, but as men who finally get to decide their own fate.
But what can 100 men do against thousands? Against the fortress itself? When we, in all our might, in all our endurance, cannot even scratch it.
I let the question hang for a moment, turning my gaze toward Horath. Horath said it himself. Mankind is not of ice. We are of fire. We burn with passion, with love, with hatred. And fire spreads. Right now, it's just us. Just these prisoners, just these outcasts, a tiny spark in the blizzard. But when word of this reaches beyond the storm, when our challenge against Icehold begins, when we strike, and when we succeed, that spark will catch. And once it catches, you won't just have 140 on your side. You won't just have a handful of warriors. You'll have thousands, tens of thousands. Because Icehold has crushed more than just us. It has stolen sons from fathers, wives from husbands, brothers from brothers. It has been a blade at the throat of Ouroros for God knows how long. And the moment we show the world that it can bleed, the world will tear it apart.
The great frost giant does not answer immediately. Instead, he leans back slightly, his massive form creaking as he settles, his great eye narrows. The silence stretches, long enough that the weight of the moment begins to press down on you. Then finally he speaks.
Then so be it. This burden is now yours, fire-blooded one. You will oversee this under Horath. You will gather them, prepare them, decide who is worthy and who is not. And when the storm settles, when the time comes to strike the wound into Icehold's flesh, we will move.
The great frost giants begin to shift, their immense forms moving. Hrimvaldir does not speak again. His great eye closes, the weight of his decision settling into stillness, his form lowering slightly, like a mountain returning to its slumber. Horath turns, eyes lingering on Hrimvaldir for a final moment before he gestures for you to move.
Yeah, we move out, but when we're out, I want to ask him something. I step up beside Horath, glancing up at his towering form. How many of your kin would be willing to fight?
Willing?
Yeah, how many would fight beside us?
All are willing, for all are Thromhold. Even the children would, but we will not allow it, for they are but seeds, and seeds cannot withstand extremities. As for our number, For our warriors, we have around 38, 40, if we include Vornhal and Jorvinger.
Ooh, that's a lot of bulk right there.
That's a damn impressive amount. We're going to destroy their mining outpost.
If only it were so easy. They have many numbers, many soldiers. It will be hard. It will be glorious.
Can you take us back to the cell area where you collected us earlier? I need to talk to the people in the ones next to us.
Of course.
Roarcath leads you back through the massive ice corridors. You move without delay, and finally, you arrive back at the prison area.
Hey, Kragus. So you're free. It's up to you to decide whether you want to fight with us or not. I'm not going to hold you to it.
The hell are you talking about? I gave you my word, didn't I? And my word is all I got. We will fight with you. Now tell me, when do we move?
Soon. But first we need to make sure all the other prisoners are either out of here or on board. Think you could handle that? Talk to them?
Just throwing this out there, but maybe we should set any captured guards free before we start having deep conversations about overthrowing the system. Probably not the best idea to be discussing rebellion around Icehold or Solaris guards.
That's a fantastic point. Can't believe that slipped my mind.
I have my moments.
Yeah. If one of the big guys can round everyone up, get them listening, I'll find the guards, tell them to get moving, then start figuring out who's willing to fight. I do have a question though. What are we doing about any real bastards we find? I'm talking the ones who deserve Icehold.
We lock them back up inside. Look, it was extreme for us to act the way we did earlier. And we can't just go playing judge, jury, and executioner every time we don't like someone. We leave it to Roarcath, the elders, or Hrimvaldir to decide their fate.
Gotcha. Don't know who those people are, but fair enough. Right then, I guess I'll get to work.
Roarcath, would you mind going with him?
I will do this.
Huh. Never thought I'd be all pally with a frost giant. Last time I saw one of you, I was running for my life.
Then run faster next time.
Noted.
All right. Enough standing around. Where do you want me, boss? You need a scout, a distraction, someone to turn into a bird and make dramatic aerial gestures while you all charge in? I'm flexible.
Jokes aside, Kobe, I seriously question whether this is any place for you. You could die. Like, for real. And yeah, I joke about wanting to kill you for what you did, but it was just that, a joke. But this isn't a game. If you come with us, you might not be coming back. You might not be going home.
What home? I don't have a home, Tronald. I was born a few months ago. I don't have memories of a childhood, no place to go back to, no past to cling to. The only thing I got is right now, this moment, this choice. And if I'm gonna start living like really living, then starting by doing something that feels right seems like the best bet.
Right. Okay, man.
It's good to have you back, Kobe.
Thanks, brother.
Joe, I want to head back to where Celestia is, see how she's doing.
You make your way back through the icy halls, the air still biting, but the weight in your chest a little lighter than before. As you step into the chamber where Celestia was left, you see Skadrith kneeling beside her, watching over her with silent vigilance. The good news? Celestia is awake, sitting up, drinking from an overly large tub, likely water, melted from ice. The surface ripples as she lifts it weakly, her hands still unsteady, but she's drinking. She's alive. As you approach, the blackened veins on her arms, once dark and pulsing with the weight of her contract, seem to have retracted, their reach lessened, like something inside her has settled for now.
Hey there, Celestia, how are you doing?
I'm feeling okay. It didn't hurt. It just felt weird.
I bet it did. Maybe accepting that mark was the wrong thing to do.
I'm not certain it was, Raarh. He didn't force me to do that. I chose to do it.
That's what I told these guys.
Yeah, well, if I didn't have his power, there wouldn't have been a chance of me restoring anyone without diamonds. Do we even have any diamonds?
God knows, I'd have to dig around. Maybe, maybe not. But the fact that you can cast powerful spells like that, ones that usually require pricey components for free, that's insane.
Well, that's one thing he made clear. It's not free. Every time I do, it takes a toll. He was pretty open about that, actually. I feel like he could have hidden it, could have tried to manipulate me into believing it wouldn't, but he didn't. Which was strange. I mean, he's still a devil, so maybe he was manipulating me in his own way. But it didn't feel like it.
Like I said, he's a chill dude. Just seems angry at the world, but not necessarily everyone in it.
Right. I think I need to get closure with what's happened to me, because a hell of a lot has, and I need to know more about this mark before we go any further. So, I'm going to talk to him.
Well, just be careful, Celestia.
I will, Tronald. Thanks. Joe, I struggle to my feet thanks Skadrith and waddle my way over to a more isolated part of the chamber where eyes aren't watching me.
Okay. You step away from the others and make your way toward a more secluded corner of the cavern. Now what?
Oh, and just a little bit of retcon if I can, Joe. I wanted to revive Jorvenger first, her brother. I thought her brother was Vornhal for some reason, but I checked my notes and I got it mixed up.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Anyway, once I'm there, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to close my eyes and try to communicate with him. I'm casting Commune as a ritual. Vizuriel, why did you mark me? Actually, I don't think you can respond with more than a yes or no, so I'll simplify it. Did you mark me for your own benefit?
You lower yourself down, legs folding beneath you, closing your eyes as your breath steadies, the distant murmurs of the others fading into the background. The world around you grows distant, the cold irrelevant, your heartbeat the only sound left in the void. And then you reach out, and Vizuriel responds, and...
Ah, Celestia, always asking questions, always trying to unravel the threads that weave your fate. I admire that about you. But let me be clear, I do not put restrictions on those I guide. There is no leash to chain you to petty gods, no commands whispered in the dark, no false promises of salvation wrapped in the shackles of obedience. I marked you not to control, but because I have seen your past, the scars you carry, the pain that was left to fester, the silent pleas to a divine that never answered. I have been your present, standing at your side when others turn their backs, offering power, not as a gift, but as a choice. And I have seen your future, a path not yet walked, but one that is inevitable. And I did this because, whether you know it or not, whether you accept it or not, we will be at war soon. Not just you, not just me, but our beliefs against that of the divine. And tell me, Celestia, where are they now? Where is your precious Sune? Where is the one who claimed you as theirs, the one who spoke of purpose and destiny? She was always going to abandon you. I just didn't know when.
So if I decided to go back to Sune, if she accepted me back, would you stop me?
Not at all. You must do as you see fit, Celestia. I will not claim to see all, but I have seen enough. Enough to know that gods, just like mortals, are not as unyielding as they pretend to be. They can be swayed. They can be pulled toward the winning side.
Right. Okay. My last question for you then. Why did you kill me?
I had to force his hand. I had to fuel his hatred, push him to unravel the truth on his own accord. And he did.
Sorry, one more question. Unless you can't.
Ha! I'm fairly certain 3 is where most of the divine would stop you. But please, ask away.
How do you have the power to access the forces of hell to call forth devils when your own grandfather Asmodeus wants nothing to do with you?
Because, as I said before, anyone, gods, mortals, and everything in between, can be swayed to the winning side.
And with that, the tether of connection snaps. The cold rushes back in, sharp and immediate, pulling you from the depthless void of Vizuriel's presence and back into the dimly lit cavern where your breath fogs in the frozen air. The weight of his words still lingers, but the conversation is over.
All right then. I push myself up, rolling my shoulders, shaking off the lingering sensation of being watched. Then I start making my way back to the guys.
Okay.
So how did it go?
Yeah, did you have a nice chat?
Meh. It's gonna take some getting used to, no doubt about that, but it feels like the right choice. For now, anyway. You guys were right. Sune abandoned me. Vizuriel foresaw it, and when she wasn't there, he was.
Well, it's always nice to have a supporting figure, spirit, malevolent entity looming over your every decision. You know, whatever works.
So what should we do now then?
Well, we're just waiting for Kragas to gather the forces that'll be joining us and letting the ones who don't go free, then I guess we lay out our plans.
Right. Well, let's just take a breather then, and wait.
Yeah, we do that, Joe.
You all settle in, waiting. About an hour passes before you see a group of people moving toward the exit, their expressions pale, stiff with fear. They walk slowly, hesitantly, the occasional glance over their shoulder betraying how shaken they truly are. One of the frost giants approaches them, handing them a bundle of gear, armor, weapons, things taken when they were first captured. They put them on quickly, their hands still unsteady, and without wasting another moment, they start making their way toward the exit. There's no looking back, no talking, just a silent, tense retreat into the storm.
Pretty sure Valdir said the current storm is too bad for traveling in.
Well, I'm guessing they'll figure that out pretty quickly and make camp somewhere sheltered.
Yeah, too risky to have them in here while we're discussing plans about Icehold. Let them go. They're capable. They're not going to keep trekking forward when they're freezing to death. Plenty of outcroppings and butt-crack mountains out there.
As you watch the last of the guards disappear into the blizzard, the cold swallowing them whole, another voice calls out from behind you, loud, casual, completely unfazed by the tension lingering in the air.
Yoo-hoo! All right, boys, I've got good news and better news. Good news, I rounded up the lot of them, got them all lined up, geared up and fired up. Guards are gone, sent packing, no trouble there. Better news, every single one of them wants a piece of this fight. Every single one is ready to put their boot through the spine of the bastards who threw them away. Now, a few of them are a little too excited. One guy, Morgan, pretty sure the gods themselves can hear him yelling. Either he's got half a brain or no ears because everything he says is at maximum volume.
Perfect. Let's go meet him, see what we're working with, and start laying out the plan.
We should probably grab Horath first, get his input before we start making decisions. His judgment carries weight here.
Oh, don't worry about that. Horath's already with him. If you want to talk to him, you'll find him with the rest of the boys, keeping them in line, or trying to, at least. So let's not keep him waiting, huh?
Fair enough. Let's head over there then.
Kragus leads you deeper into the cavern, his pace unbothered, hands in his pockets like he's strolling into a tavern rather than a war camp. The tunnels twist and widen, the air growing thicker with heat and noise as you step into the massive space that now holds your newly formed army. And it's a mess. There are easily over 100 men, some excitable, fired up, practically vibrating with adrenaline. Others look nervous, arms crossed, eyes darting around, like they haven't quite accepted they're about to march into hell. And then there's Horath, a single, massive, visibly irritated frost giant, standing amidst this swarming mass of human chaos, trying to contain their energy, but failing miserably. They're firing questions at him from every direction, all at once, a tidal wave of noise, excitement, and poorly thought-out battle strategies. When do we fight? What's the plan, big guy? Are we storming the gates or sneaking in? What about weapons? You got weapons. How many giants do we get? What's the best way to kill a man twice your size? Horath stands stoic, arms crossed, his expression a perfect portrait of patience and exhaustion combined. He lets them burn through their energy, answering nothing, his gaze sweeping over the human hurricane around him, probably wondering if this was truly a good idea. And then there's Morgan, and it is not difficult to figure out who he is. A broad-shouldered, rugged-looking bastard currently bouncing on his feet like a boxer before a fight, fists flying through the air, pretending to punch Horath's massive legs, throwing wild jabs at the frost giant's shin like he's already in the fight of his life. His voice cuts through the noise like a goddamn war horn, every word booming with the wild, chaotic energy of a man who has spent his entire life too loud for every room he's ever been in.
Whoa! Hell yeah! Boys, we're gonna tear Icehold a new one! You see this right here?
He throws a jab at Horath's massive foot, completely ignored by the giant.
This is what I'm gonna do to those rat bastard guards. Pow! Right in the teeth! And then, bam! Straight to the gut! And then, boom! Kick 'em right in the... Wait! Do Icehold guards even have balls?
Horath exhales slowly, eyes closing for half a second like a man trying to summon the strength to endure another minute of this madness.
Why couldn't that guy have been in our cell? We would have gotten the attention of the giants way ahead of schedule.
Joe, I make my way over to Horath.
Horath spots you immediately. His arms remain crossed, but there's a tightness in his jaw, a subtle strain that wasn't there before. And when he speaks, his tone is as even as ever, but beneath it there's something else, something tired.
I'm glad to see you, fire-blooded one. But know this, I have much patience, and it is wearing thin.
Right, yeah, I'll deal with it. Hey, Morgan, do you mind, stepping back from...
What?
Can you step back from...
What? Can't hear you!
Will you fuck off for a second, you dolt?
Oh, sure. Why didn't you just say so?
Morgan finally steps away, his energy completely unaffected, like a storm changing direction without losing strength. He wanders toward another group, who all visibly roll their eyes as he approaches. And yet, he's still shadowboxing, throwing jabs at nothing.
What an interesting man.
What an idiot.
So, Horath, I know we're moving out as soon as the storm clears, but what's the actual plan?
Their minds run deep. The upper levels are vast, open pits, tunnels wide enough for even my kin to fight in. But the lower chambers, they are carved for their size, not ours. So this is how it will be. When we strike, we rush the surface, taking it in one sweep, forcing their soldiers to bottleneck or scatter. You, the small ones, will descend into the lower shafts, where the true work is done, where the veins of our fallen are being stripped away. Some of our younger kin, those still small enough to move through human spaces, will go with you. They will hold the tunnels, ensure you are not flanked, and cut off any chance of escape. As for the rest of us, we will remain above. Any who flee, we will capture or crush. Any who reinforce, we will break. And by the time the ice settles, there will be no mine left to return to.
Right. And how far away is the mine they're currently desecrating?
It is 2 days' walk northwest of here. Far enough from Icehold that we should not expect reinforcements from them. They should be alone when we strike.
Do any of these guys even know the plan yet? Because it sounds like some of them think we're marching straight into Icehold itself.
They know nothing from me. Only what the one you put in charge has mentioned. But I suspect details have been altered, as they have spread from mouth to mouth. Rumors twist the truth. Excitement breeds misunderstanding. You should correct this before it leads to folly.
Yeah, he's right. We should probably clear this up with them. Who wants to take charge on that?
Tronald, do you want to? Feels like you get it across best.
Nah, I think Raarh should.
Right. Well, okay. Joe, I shout out, "Ahem! Listen up, you lot."
Okay, all of them slowly stop murmuring amongst themselves and turn towards you.
Now, I don't know what you've been whispering to each other, but I'm gonna set the record straight. We ain't marching on Icehold. No, we're doing something far worse. We're stripping them of their resources, of their gold, of their power. We're tearing into the thing that feeds them, that keeps them comfortable, that lets them sit in their fortresses and believe they're untouchable. And you know what? They're not gonna see it coming. See, the Empire thinks it's too big to fall. They think they're untouchable, that their grip is so damn tight on these lands that nobody would dare. Well, we dare, and we will be moving out as soon as this bastard storm settles. Because unlike our big friends over here, we ain't exactly built for the ice and the cold, are we, lads? Chafes the nipples and all kinds of shit. Easy now, lads. Easy. So we're striking their minds, and we're gonna make them regret every fucking ounce of their greed. We're not just going to war, we're taking the first piece off the board before they even know the game has started. No reinforcements, no backup, no escape. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll be standing in the ruins of what used to be theirs. Now, one last thing. If the opportunity for mercy shows itself, we will gladly accept it, because we are all about kindness. But if it doesn't, which I suspect will be the case with these particular bastards, then we strike them down. We leave no room for them to rally. We make sure the last thing they ever see is the look of men who refuse to be prisoners anymore. And when the dust settles, the Empire will know this is just the fucking beginning.
What's he saying? I can't hear a damn thing.
That was epic, Raarh. You certainly were the right choice for that.
You're telling me.
Got me quaking with excitement.
The moment Raarh's words leave his mouth, the chamber ignites. Not with fire, not with magic, but with fury, with purpose, with something that had been crushed under boot heels for far too long. Shouts echo through the cavern, fists raised, weapons drawn, the weight of their shared anger turning into something focused. For the next 6 hours, the air is thick with the sounds of preparation, the clatter of steel on stone, as men grip weapons they never thought they'd wield again. The creak of leather as armor, patched, dented, but still sturdy, is fastened to shoulders and strapped to waists. The dull rhythmic hum of sharpening blades, as men and giants alike ensure that their weapons will bite deep when the time comes. The frost giants, immense, unshakable, move among them, towering figures clad in thick furs and armor carved from the bones of creatures long extinct. Their weapons are not delicate things. They are war itself, given form. Yet despite their size, despite their otherworldly strength, they do not look down at the humans around them. They help them fasten chainmail. They nod in approval at the men who have chosen to stand beside them. And for the first time in recorded history, men and giants do not stand on opposite sides of the battlefield. They stand together, fire and ice, fury and patience. For too long, the Empire has looked down on them both, used them, caged them, discarded them. But now they will remember what it means to fear them. And then, you notice it. The wind has stopped. The eternal howling, the storm that had raged since you arrived, gone. And from the depths of the ice, from somewhere far beyond the walls of this cavern, you hear a voice. Not whispered, not booming, but something deeper, something that resonates through your bones, through the very walls around you. A voice of ancient command, a voice of inevitability. And though it is spoken in giant, you do not need translation to understand it. It is a call to war, and it demands blood. And with that, the giants begin to move. Horath lets out a thunderous roar, his voice shaking the cavern walls, reverberating through the bones of the mountain itself. His massive arm lifts, pointing forward toward the exit, and without a moment's pause, the giants follow. They move as one, not in a frenzied charge, not with reckless abandon, but with the slow, unyielding momentum of an avalanche. A force that does not falter, that does not stop, that does not ask for permission before it swallows everything in its path. And to your left, you see Skadrith. She kneels just for a moment, resting a massive hand on Vornhal's still body, her breath slow and heavy, a whisper spoken only for him. Then, her fingers trail over Jorvanger, her brother, his chest now rising and falling, his breath still ragged but alive. She closes her eyes, just for a second. Then she stands. Without a word, without a single glance back, she strides forward, reaching down to grasp a colossal stone club, lifting it like it weighs nothing. And she marches. The humans, your army, your people, look to you now. They've seen the giants move, seen the warriors of the old world stepping forward into battle. And now they wait, not for permission, not for orders, but for a leader to take the first step.
I turn to them, my blood boiling. Let's fucking go, boys!
The humans, the forgotten, the discarded, those who had been caged like animals, they bellow their defiance, their voices shaking the cavern, their war cries crashing together into one deafening wave of fury as they stampede after you, Raarh.
Well, this is it then.
Probably the most dangerous shit we've ever done.
And yet, somehow, it still doesn't feel like the dumbest thing we've pulled.
Well, if I die today, at least I can say I lived a very interesting few months. Not long, but interesting.
Let's hope we're all here to talk about it in a week's time.
And if we're not, then let's make sure they talk about us instead.
You move. A force of over 100 human warriors, once prisoners, now something greater, marching side by side with over 30 frost giants, their immense forms looming over the ranks, their footfalls sending low tremors through the frozen ground. But one man in particular has no interest in silent reflection, and, unsurprisingly, it's Morgan. He's bouncing on his feet, practically skipping through the snow, shifting between throwing punches at the air and looking up at the towering frost giants beside him like a kid meeting his heroes. Eventually, he locks eyes with one of them, Grimskuld, a massive warrior with a scar carved deep across his jawline, and grins like a madman.
All right, big guy, serious question. What's the best way to drop one of you in a fight?
You do not.
See? That's what I thought. But it's also a bit unfair, 'cause I feel like you've never been properly punched in the face before. You know, like really punched. Man to much bigger man.
Your fists would land like snow on stone.
Right. But what if I get a running start? Full sprint, full momentum, fist wound up like a divine intervention. What then?
Then you will die running.
See, now, that's a realistic answer. I appreciate that.
I'm going to move up to Horath, Joe. So, Is this the first time frost giants and humans have fought together?
It is the first time in my lifetime. Perhaps once, long before the Empire, our kind knew another way. But if those stories exist, they have been buried beneath the ice.
Well, seems like history's about to change then.
Yes.
Joe, I want to make my way over to Skadrith. I step up beside her, matching her pace as best I can. He'll be fine, Skadrith. Jorvenger, that is. He just needs time to recover. As for Vornhall, I'll bring him back as soon as we return. The way this power works, it demands patience. I couldn't have done both today.
Skadrith walks, silent for a few paces, her grip tightening on the massive stone club in her hand. Then she turns down to you.
I appreciate this. Not just the act, but the weight of it. I do not pretend to understand what it costs you, nor will I ask. You gave my brother back to me, and if you give Vornhall back as well, then you will have done what even the storm could not.
I don't do this for recognition, Skadrith. I did it because it was the right thing to do.
Perhaps, but in my world, when a debt is made, it is acknowledged. And a debt like this, it is repaid.
She doesn't say anything else after that, just continues marching forward, her eyes set on the horizon.
How are you feeling, Raarh?
All right, just hope we get there in time.
We will, and we will rescue your father.
Thanks, Tronald. But listen, when this fight starts, we stick together. Because this isn't going to be some tavern brawl. This is going to get gnarly. People are going to die. Some of us might not make it out. So if we want to walk away from this, we fight smart. We fight as a unit.
Agreed. We move as one, cover each other's backs. We've fought together long enough to know that when shit hits the fan, we're all we've got.
Yeah, and let's be realistic. We're about to storm a heavily armed mining outpost run by professional killers. They will not go down easy.
Then we make sure they go down hard, because this ain't just about us. It ain't just about one battle, one mine, one day. This is about sending a message.
I like this energy. Very let's burn down the system vibes. Love it. Very motivational.
Just don't let that motivation get you killed.
No matter what happens, gonna be a hell of a story.
Then let's make sure it's a story we live to tell.
You press forward, the march unbroken. The landscape shifts, the towering peaks of the frost giant's domain giving way to vast, open plains of white, where the snow sits thick and undisturbed, untouched by anything but the bitter winds that sweep across it. Occasionally, you spot movement in the distance, predators, pale-furred beasts watching from the ridgelines, their hungry eyes reflecting the faint moonlight, but none dare to come closer, not with over 30 frost giants marching alongside you. The day passes, the sun barely cresting the horizon before beginning its slow descent again, casting long blue shadows across the snow. The cold bites harder as night falls. The winds rise, howling through the emptiness. But the frost giants, they have a solution. When it is time to make camp, they simply stop. One by one they sit, then lean into each other, shoulders pressed together, their massive bodies forming a wall of flesh and armor shielding those beneath them. It is not intentional, it is simply what they do. They rest as warriors do, conserving their strength, their massive frames creating a natural canopy against the elements. From the outside to any who might be watching, it would appear as if the humans had been swallowed by the storm itself, just another mass of ice and snow. But within, there is reasonable warmth. A pocket of stillness in a land where stillness usually means death. When morning comes, the giants stir first. They break formation. You shake off the cold, pulling yourselves up from the frozen earth, stretching stiff limbs. And then you see him. A single frost giant dragging two massive snow deer behind him, each nearly the size of a horse. He doesn't say a word, just drops them at your feet, turns, and walks away without a second glance. Clearly, this is for you, not them. They don't need it. Their slow metabolism keeps them going for days, weeks without food. But for the humans, it's a necessity.
All right, I start cutting them up, slicing cleanly through thick fur and flesh, then begin separating the best cuts from the bone, getting the meat ready.
How are we going to cook it, though?
Don't need to. Venison can be eaten raw.
How sure are you about that? Because food poisoning before a fight seems like a pretty shit way to die.
I'm sure, but if you don't wanna, why not just ask one of the giants to grab some wood?
Not sure how much wood we're going to find out here.
Still worth asking. Hey, Horath, any trees nearby we could use for a fire?
Horath raises a hand.
I have already sent someone. They will return soon.
And sure enough, 5 minutes later you see a frost giant returning, dragging behind him a massive, ice-barked tree, its twisted roots still covered in frozen dirt. Without a word, he sets it down, then snaps it into pieces like it's nothing more than dry twigs. The humans move in immediately, Kragus leading them, grabbing the thick branches, hacking them down into kindling.
All right, once everything's in place, I'll just spam firebolt until we get a blaze going.
I'll join you with that.
And so you do. The first bursts of flame flicker, crackling against the frozen wood, melting the ice that had formed on the bark. Within minutes, a fire roars to life, golden and hungry, pushing back the morning chill. The scent of burning wood mingles with the cold air, a scent that shouldn't belong here, but now it does.
Guess I'll just start cooking then, Joe. Gonna skewer the meat and start roasting it.
No, that's not going to work. You'll end up burning the wood before the meat even cooks. Plus, it'll take forever. Joe, I fashion a simple cooking rig out of the wood. Something to suspend the spits over the fire without burning through the supports.
Saxy, you grab a few of the sturdier pieces, constructing a simple but effective spit roasting setup, ensuring the heat cooks the meat evenly without turning the wooden supports to ash. The first pieces of venison are set over the flames, the scent of cooking meat slowly filling the air. An hour passes, then another. The venison is eaten, thick cuts of meat, juicy, warm, and filling. The humans sit together, laughing, telling stories of past fights, past failures, past regrets. The frost giants listen, not engaging much, but not ignoring them either. It is a strange sight, one no history book will ever record. And then, when you are all finished, the army moves. For hours, you all press forward. Then, the crest appears. Horath lifts a massive hand, fingers curling in a silent signal. Hold. The giants slow, their forms lowering, massive frames sinking into crouches that still loom over the humans beside them. Their movements are eerily quiet for things so large, their sheer size allowing them to sink into the terrain like pieces of the land itself. The humans follow suit, moving low, careful, controlled, their boots light against the frost-cracked rock. And then, you see it, the mine.
I'm going to pull out my scope, Joe, and look through it. What can I see?
Give me a perception check with advantage.
That's a 19 total.
As you look through your scope, Saxy, you see a massive, gaping wound in the earth, carved deep into the frozen ground like the land itself has been ripped open and left to fester. Layers upon layers of excavation twist downward into the darkness, tunnels spiderwebbing out like fractured veins, their blackened interiors swallowing all light. The surface is alive with movement. Hundreds of figures swarm like ants, each one with a task. The air hums with activity, voices calling out, orders being barked, the metallic clang of pickaxes striking stone, the distant grinding of machinery. Massive wooden scaffolds wrap around the upper layers, creating paths and platforms where guards patrol, their weapons gleaming dull under the overcast sky. Carts rumble along crude tracks, led by beasts of burden, their contents tarped over, concealed, moving in and out of the deeper tunnels. Thick chains are strung between the scaffoldings, the faint glint of restraints visible even from this distance. People shuffling, moving in packs, bodies too thin, too weak to be mere workers. But prisoners. They are working until they are spent, and then they are replaced. And above it all, banners of the Empire hang from posts, fluttering in the frozen wind like the standard of a kingdom that believes itself eternal. You take it all in, the scale, the movement, the suffocating reality of what you are about to tear apart. The frost giants do not speak, but their massive hands tighten around their weapons, their breaths coming slower, controlled, steadying for war. The humans? Some clench their fists, some breathe heavier, adrenaline creeping up their spines, their knuckles white as they grip their weapons. They see it now. They understand what this is. This is not a fort, not a city, not a battlefield filled with warriors. This is a machine, a system built to break men, a system that has never known fear, until now. Because now, you are here.
How far is the edge of the pit away from us, Joe?
Maybe 700 feet. Close enough to see everything, to hear the distant clang of metal on stone, to watch the Empire's machine churn away without fear of interruption. Far enough that, for now, they don't see you.
I turn to Horath, Joe. Right then. On your command, Horath.
Horath raises one massive hand, fingers curling into a silent order, and the giants move. One by one, they rise from their crouches, stepping over the crest as they assemble in ranks, weapons gripped tight, breaths low and steady, warriors who have known patience and suffering, who now step forward to claim vengeance. Between them, the humans spill through, filling the gaps like water flooding between stone. No longer prisoners, no longer castaways, but an army. A ragged force once deemed unworthy of freedom, now standing shoulder to shoulder with giants. The mine below is still moving, workers shuffling in tired lines, carts rattling along wooden tracks, the sound of pickaxes on stone ringing through the open pit. But something shifts, a ripple of awareness, a change in the air as the first of the guards spots you all. Then the horn sounds. In an instant, the Empire's forces react. The scattered patrols that had been watching from the scaffolding snap into action, calling orders, pointing toward the rise where your army stands. From all across the mining encampment, soldiers abandon their posts, moving with trained efficiency as they begin to form ranks. Armor clatters, swords and spears are drawn, shields lock together, forming a wall of steel at the upper levels, a defensive line meant to hold back an attack before it can reach the depths of the mine. You count at least 200 of them. Better armed, better equipped, trained to hold, not run.
Tronald weg skell, Thran weg thar. Uldan vor myr weg drakar.
The frost giants slam their weapons into the ice as they roar in unison.
Joe, I turn to our men. Men of fury! We do not stand here as prisoners. We do not march as condemned men looking for a way out. We march because we chose to. We march because they took from us, because they put us in cages, because they beat us, because they called us weak and laughed when they locked the doors behind them. And now we are the ones who laugh. They sit down there beneath their banners, beneath their orders, beneath the empire that has kept us in chains, and they think they are safe. They think we are too small. They think we are too weak. Well, they are wrong! Because when a man has nothing left to lose, he is the most dangerous thing in the world. And we have nothing left to lose. We will tear down their banners. We will burn their machines. We will drag them from their pits. And when the sun rises tomorrow, they will know our names. We fight, we win, we destroy them. Now, forward!
The moment Raarh's roar tears through the air, the battle is set into motion. The frost giants surge forward, their massive strides tearing through the frozen earth, their weapons raised high, ready to bring ruin to the enemy. The humans follow, a tide of fury, of vengeance, of men who have spent too long in chains and are now breaking free with steel and fire. Below, the Empire's forces brace, shields locked together, spears lower, ballistae turn to fire. They think they are ready, but they are not.
I want to fly into the air, Joe, and start firing lightning shots at them with my arcane cannon.
Okay, Saxy, roll me a D100.
That's a 74.
You lift off, the cold wind biting against your face, the battlefield below turning into a mass of moving bodies. Your arcane cannon hums with energy, the first blast charging, then firing. Boom! A bolt of pure lightning rips through the air, crashing into the tight formation of the shield wall below. The energy explodes outward, metal superheating, men screaming as the current leaps from one to the next, twisting their bodies into convulsing husks. Then, another shot. Then another. The shield wall staggers, breaks in places, but they hold.
As we get closer, I command the giants to launch an initial volley of boulders and ice before we hit them front on.
D100 for me, Tronald.
That's a 68.
Your voice cuts through the chaos, and the frost giants halt mid-stride, their massive hands digging into the frozen earth, tearing boulders the size of houses from the ground. And then they throw. Massive hunks of ice and stone smash into the Empire's defensive line, throwing bodies like rag dolls, sending splinters of wood and steel flying in all directions. The ground is littered with broken shields, shattered bones, and men struggling to crawl back to their formations. But the Empire is disciplined. They do not falter. They do not panic. And they answer. From the higher scaffolds of the mining outpost, the ballistae fire. First one, then another, then another. The deep, mechanical groan of their cranks loading back echoes through the pit, followed by the sharp snap of release, the hiss of massive bolts slicing through the air. The first slams into a frost giant mid-stride, punching through his shoulder with a sickening crunch, sending him staggering back, his great club falling from his grasp. He roars in pain but does not fall. Not yet. The second fires into a cluster of charging humans, the bolt ripping through 4 men in a row, impaling them like skewered meat, pinning their bodies to the ice. Then the third. It strikes a frost giant in the chest, piercing through fur, flesh, and bone. His eyes go wide, his breath a sharp mist of blood as he drops to his knees, then collapses forward with an earth-shaking thud. The ground beneath him splinters, cracks, as another giant beside him lets out a furious bellow, gripping his axe tighter, ignoring the wound now bleeding freely from his leg. And still, the Empire reloads. The ballistae crank back again, their crews moving with practiced precision, aiming for the biggest targets, the largest threats. They are forcing your hand. You cannot stay in this long-range fight. You must push forward or be torn apart where you stand.
Fuck this! Joe, I lead the frontal charge into their ranks. Great sword of Nepthet Kar swinging, aiming to break their formation.
Roll it for me, Raarh, D100.
91.
You hit like a wrecking ball. Your axe cleaves through shields like parchment. The first man in front of you barely registering his death before he's torn apart. You plow straight through their formation, cutting a path of blood and shattered armor, your men and giantkin alike following in your wake like wolves descending on prey. The Empire's tight formation breaks. They are not prepared for this kind of brutality. They expected an organized assault, not a force of nature ripping through their ranks.
I give partial control to my symbiote and start threading through the enemy, attacking wherever possible. So, rolling a D100, that's a 57.
You move like a shadow, slipping between armored soldiers, your claws ripping through weak points, tendrils snaking out, piercing throats and hamstringing enemies before they can even turn. Some cry out, others barely register the wound before their lifeblood spills out onto the ice. But this is a battlefield, and you are one man among many. Some see you, some try to fight back. Blades swing your way, and while you dodge most, one finds its mark, cutting a thin line across your arm. That's 9 points of damage to you, Mite.
I just start thorn whipping them wherever possible. That's a 39.
Vines lash out from the ground, wrapping around ankles, throats, yanking soldiers off their feet, slamming them into the cold stone beneath them. But the battlefield is moving too fast, the chaos too thick. Some break free, some hack away the vines, and others simply push through.
I just spam guidance to giants and humans alike, whoever's in range, and sacred flame on as many enemies as I can. That's an 81.
Your voice rings out, a mixture of infernal and divine power flowing through your allies, strengthening their limbs, sharpening their strikes, guiding their hands to land lethal blows. And from your outstretched hand, golden fire erupts. Flames descend, engulfing soldiers mid-swing, armor melting into flesh, weapons dropping from searing hot hands as their screams mix with the roars of battle. Even those who do not fall immediately are blinded, burned, thrown into disarray, allowing your forces to push forward harder.
I dance between the enemy, not meeting them head-on. I'm moving around them, slipping past clashing spears and flailing shields, cutting deep where they don't expect it. So, rolling. That's a 95.
Your steps are effortless, your blade a silver blur in the chaos. Where the giants crush and tear, where the prisoners strike with raw fury, you are something else entirely. You are not a brawler, not a warrior who smashes through armor. You are a knife slipping between ribs, a whisper before the throat is cut. You sidestep a clumsy swing, your blade dancing through the opening, carving across the gap in a soldier's armor, sending him reeling, clutching at his side. Another turns toward you, too slow. You are already behind him, your blade flashing upward, cutting through the straps of his pauldron, then twisting upward, severing the tendons in his shoulder. He crumples, gasping, unable to stand, unable to fight. You press forward, cutting deeper into their lines, leaving behind a trail of men who will never fight again. The Empire's officers begin to notice. You see their desperation, the way they try to redirect soldiers toward you, but they can't keep up. You are already gone, already weaving through their ranks like a storm on the wind, already too deep, and they are too slow to stop you. All of you have torn through their ranks, breaking their formation, pushing deeper into the mining outpost. The frost giants wade in, cleaving through soldiers, their weapons sending men flying, their roars shaking the battlefield.
We're through, guys. Down to the lower levels. Ignore this rabble. Kragas, bring a few of your men with us.
You got it. Let's move.
He and a half a dozen men break off, following you as you make for the entrance to the mines, but not without a few close calls. Arrows whistle past your heads, narrowly missing as you duck and weave through the chaos. A ballista bolt slams into a frost giant mid-swing, tearing through his ribcage, dropping him in a heap of blood and ice. Another giant grabs a guard in each hand, crushing them like insects, hurling their bodies into the fray. But you don't stop. You reach it, the massive industrial lift, large enough to haul 50 men and carts of stolen minerals.
I fly over to where everyone is, landing on the platform and pull the lever.
The mechanisms groan, gears grinding as the platform shifts, and suddenly, you're dropping. The battlefield above fades from view, but you can still hear it. The roars, the screams, the clash of steel and flesh, the dying breaths of those who won't make it out of this fight. 200 feet down, the mine shafts open before you. Carts and rails, lanterns flickering in the tunnels, and about 40 prisoners, some cowering, others watching in shock and excitement.
Joe, can I see my dad anywhere?
I help look.
Perception check with advantage.
Oh, nice. That's a 17.
You scan the area, but Drogar is nowhere in sight. These mines are deep, you know this. Lots of layers, thousands are workers. It is likely he's further down.
All of you, grab whatever weapons you can. Today is the day you are freed. Get up top, release who you can. Your brothers need you.
Give me a charisma check.
Bardic inspiration.
That's a 15.
They are shocked, confused, but they listen. One by one they stand, grabbing tools, makeshift weapons, whatever they can find, and they split. Some make their way through tunnels, and others up to the surface.
All right, so 3 tunnels. We know the residuum mining happens deep. We need to figure out which one gets us to it.
I mean, technically, it doesn't matter which tunnel we take. If we clear them one by one, no one's getting out because they're still bottled in up top.
That's assuming the battle above holds. If they start losing ground, we could have enemy reinforcements pouring down here while we're still fumbling around in the wrong tunnel.
Kragas steps forward.
Right, so we're on a timer. We don't want to waste our best fighters on dead-end tunnels, but we also can't just stand here scratching our asses.
Oh, yeah. Real great problem solving, boys. 3 tunnels, 1 goal. This ain't exactly advanced math. Why don't we just go in 3 separate groups, cover them all at once? Boom! Problem solved.
Or boom, we all die separately because we got picked off in tiny squads. Love the energy though, very reckless. Respect.
We need to stay together. We have no idea what's waiting down there. Splitting up just gives them an easier time picking us off.
All right, so back to the damn problem. How do we figure out the right one fast?
Joe, are there any more workers running around? Someone who might actually know?
You glance around, eyes scanning the platform, and sure enough, one of the freed prisoners from before, a dirt-covered man, comes stumbling out of the leftmost tunnel, a group of about 20 newly freed prisoners following behind him. They look disoriented, frantic, but not running for their lives.
I rush over to him, Joe, grabbing his shoulder before he can run past. Hey, these mines? Where's the main one? The one where they're pulling the most residuum. Where's the deepest operation?
The middle tunnel. That's where the real mining happens. That's where they're digging the deepest, where they pull out the stuff that glows. But there's guards down there. Lots of them. As well as the commander.
Right. Thanks.
Alden. You remember as you were setting the prisoners free, about 5 of them had already sprinted down the middle tunnel. None have come back.
Then that's where we're going.
Hell yeah! Straight into the belly of the beast. Love this plan.
Let's move. Because if those 5 guys didn't make it back, we already know what's waiting for us.
I've got a bad feeling about this, guys. There's no way they haven't heard the battle up top. So the fact that they haven't moved up to reinforce, that tells me they're not coming up, which means they're probably bunkered down. And if they're bunkered down, that means they're waiting for us. And that means we're walking into an ambush.
That's a good point. Maybe one of us should scout ahead. I could cast invisibility on one of you, or I could do it myself.
Well, if you just unequipped your armor, you'd be quiet enough, right?
Yeah, Joe, I deactivate my armor, disengaging the arcane servos and retracting the plating, leaving me light on my feet. Then I cast invisibility on myself.
We'll follow behind, buddy, about 100 feet back. If anything pops off, just shout.
Yeah, okay. I'll send a message to you guys if I spot anything, telling you to hold back.
Good luck.
All right, I set off, Joe.
All right, Saxy, give me a stealth check.
That's a 14, but I'm going to use a flash of genius.
Okay, so with a 19, you move carefully, step by step, your breath steady, your boots barely making a sound against the cold stone floor. Occasionally, you glance back, the faintest silhouettes of your party trailing far behind, staying well out of range. The tunnel is narrow, but not cramped. The walls are rough, veins of residuum dust shimmering faintly where they've been extracted, leaving behind pockmarked hollows, gaps where something was ripped away, something that should have remained. And as you walk, you can't help but remember Hrimvaldir's words. You are walking through something ancient, something that was not meant to be disturbed. The walls are not just stone. They are the arteries of a creature long beyond comprehension, its lifeblood taken, its body harvested for greed. You continue further until the tunnel splits. One path snakes upward, the incline subtle but noticeable, curling back toward the surface. The other slopes down.
I'll make my way downward, Joe. Then I send a message to Tronald. I'm going through the downward tunnel.
Gotcha.
You press forward, the tunnel widening slightly. Around you see tools scattered across the ground, some rusted, abandoned, others broken in half, as if dropped mid-use. Then, the first body. A worker slumped against the wall, his skin pale, hands curled around an empty water skin. The cause? Exhaustion, cold, overwork. His boots are worn through, his clothes little more than rags, and yet his hands are stained black with the remnants of residuum dust. Further ahead, another body. But this one was killed. A clean stab wound to the gut, his body left to rot where it fell. The blood is dried, darkened against the frost, but his weapon is still clutched in his hand, a pickaxe raised as if he had tried to resist. And then, the tunnel opens. A vast chamber, walls lined with empty cavities where residuum crystals once pulsed with light. This place has been bled dry. Nothing but scars remain. Give me a perception check.
That's a natural 19.
You take a slow step forward, eyes scanning the chamber, looking beyond the emptiness, beyond what isn't there. Then you see it. At first, just a flicker of movement, too subtle to be anything significant. But as your eyes focus, the details come together. Armor, metal, breath curling in the cold, 10 figures hidden within crevices in the rock, their bodies pressed deep into the shadows, their torches snuffed out to keep them from being seen too easily. One of them shifts, adjusting his grip on a weapon, and you hear it. The faintest clink of steel on stone. They are waiting. Not searching, not moving, waiting.
I send another message to Tronald. Found some of them. Looks like about 10 trying to hide. I'll come back up to meet you guys. Stay back. Then I make my way back.
You move carefully, retracing your steps, keeping your footfalls light, your movements slow. You pass the bodies again, and after about 120 feet, you spot your group.
All right, I'm next to you now. No point dropping invisibility yet if I plan to use it again shortly.
It's kind of off-putting that you're talking, but I can't see you. Super weird.
But you have a sword that talks to you, and you can't see that.
Yeah, but I can see the sword, so it's not similar at all.
Right. Anyway, so here's what I saw down there. 10 of them, tucked into crevices along the walls of the chamber. Good positioning, low light, perfect ambush setup. They weren't moving, weren't searching, they were waiting, and they were well equipped. Probably not elite soldiers, but they weren't low rankers either. They had decent weapons, well-maintained gear, and their armor looked solid. So the second we step foot in that opening, the first person through is going to turn into a porcupine of crossbow bolts.
All right, so we need to close the gap fast, otherwise we're just walking into a firing squad.
We could try flanking, see if there's another way into the chamber.
Didn't see any other exits from the chamber itself, apart from one that goes deeper. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. If there's a side passage, we don't know where it is, and we don't have time to check every tunnel.
Well, I could go first. As Celestia can vouch for, I'm pretty damn hard to hit. If we let them waste their first volley on me, by the time they're reloading, we'll all be in the chamber.
Not a bad idea, but it still doesn't guarantee us anything. If a few of them get lucky and manage to get through your crazy skill set, then you're not exactly a walking fortress of health. A few good shots could still take you out before the fight even starts.
True.
So that could be a backup plan. But what if we use fog cloud? Drop it right at the entrance to the chamber. The second the cloud rolls in, we charge through while they're scrambling to see. They'll fire blindly, but they won't have clear shots. And by the time they get their bearings, we'll be right on top of them.
Yeah, and while they're panicking, I'll use the cover of fog to black-putting myself onto the walls and ceiling, get behind them, drop into their formation like a nightmare come to life.
All right, Saxi drops the fog. Alden pushes through immediately after. He's the first target. Then Mite gets above them, cuts off their escape. We all push through, no hesitations.
Well then, guys, here we go. Let's do this. I make my way forward, Joe. I want to be stopping at least 30 feet before I see the tunnel opening up into a chamber.
All right then, guys. All of you guys, plus Craigus, Morgan, and the 5 others, slowly make your way down the gradient. When you see the opening, you stop. Saxi raises a hand, magic curling at his fingertips as he channels the spell, his voice low and steady. The air shifts, a cold vapor spilling outward, thick and dense, rolling across the tunnel like an unnatural mist creeping in from the void. The entrance to the chamber is now completely obscured, vision swallowed by the swirling fog, and in that moment, you move. I'd like all of you to roll for initiative.